Alrighty. There you go. So, hello, you other guys. Hi, Tammy. How are you, Tammy?
Well, I've just opened my little peepers.
They look wide and open.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice to see you all.
Good. Simon, how's your day?
I'm a little under the weather. I've been having a cold for the last 10 days in beautiful Mazatlan, unfortunately. But it's hopefully it's going to be over soon.
Okay. Yes. Harry,
you should try the cold showers.
Cold showers would work. Yeah, I haven't had a cold since I started taking cold showers. But okay, it's only been a month, so I'm not sure yet. But hopefully.
Motohiro.
Hello, Motohiro.
We're on. Everybody's late.
Yeah, everybody's a little late, but that's okay. So, Moto, how are you doing? You got a nice rose in your window.
1 second.
Good. And Ron is there somewhere?
Yep.
Has Christmas decorations or something. Well, he's got lights there. Anyway, I think we're expecting a few more people, but well, maybe we should just get started. The theme today is an intimate journey, and it will start with a little visualization journey. And after that, we'll talk. Hello, Tim.
Hi there.
Morning.
How's your day, Tim?
Okay.
Yeah, well,
I think so.
Good enough.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Me too.
Yeah.
Good. And hello, Ron. How's the tea?
Well, this is coffee, my 1 cup for the day.
Okay.
I also have tea, and I'm just habituated to Darjeeling tea. So,
Well, I'm more of an Earl Grey guy.
not me. That's fine, however.
Good. All right. Good. Okay, so let's get started. We will.
And I have a cold.
You have a cold. Well, so does Simon.
Yes.
But luckily, I don't think it's contagious this way. Okay, so we're going to do a little visualization journey. So find yourself a comfortable place to sit if you aren't sitting on it already. And feel free to close your eyes and take a few breaths. And just take it easy and follow along with the journey. Just breathe and relax. And I'll tell you a little story you can follow along with. And let's just mute all the audio. That's good. And you're muted too. All right. So now in our world, on this blue-green planet that we live on, there are many extraordinary travel destinations. You could travel to see pyramids in Egypt, rainforests in the Amazon, hot springs on Iceland, or any of the great cities with deep history going back hundreds or even thousands of years, or any of the other great locations on the planet. Maybe you already have a favorite faraway destination. Maybe a place you already know well. Maybe a place you've always wanted to go visit. And now is your chance. Take a moment to pick the particular place you want to go now. If you have several choices, just pick one of them. Doesn't have to be the perfect choice. It's the journey that matters after all, not just the destination. So now, imagine that after all the travel arrangements have been made, you've now been traveling for most of the day. You've flown on planes, you've been half asleep in your seat for hours, you've changed time zones, you've landed, you've recovered your luggage. Depending on where you're going, there might be more steps by train, by boat, by bus, but it's all part of the journey. You might need to walk a bit and drag your luggage behind you, but at some point, eventually, you arrive. You're there. This is the place. Your senses are now wide open. You take deep breaths. The air smells different. The sounds are different. You try to take it all in, the sights, the sounds, everything. You look with new eyes. You sense with tinkling new senses. You're going to spend some days here, and it's going to be quite an adventure. And while you're standing there, trying to take it all in, deciding what to do first, you can't help but notice a fellow traveler standing right next to you. Your eyes catch each other. It seems like they sparkle. You both smile. You exchange a few kind words, and it's odd. It seems almost like you already know each other, even though you just met. This is just the start. Once you've unpacked and maybe rested a bit, you again meet this person and you talk, and the feeling will only get deeper that this stranger is somebody with whom you can share things that you rarely would share with anybody. This is somebody whom you can tell things you haven't told anybody, and they will understand, and they tell you things, amazing things that nobody has ever told you like that before. You can feel safe and warm and inspired with them and with yourself, even in these somewhat unusual and unfamiliar circumstances. So take a minute or so now to experience and imagine what this is like, what you talk about, what you say, and how that feels and what happens. And just take your time and let it evolve by itself. And now, as you're going to continue your journey, you can allow yourself to keep that feeling and that space and that connection with you, and take it with you. And without having to think much about it, feel it in your body as you slowly and gradually make your way back here. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and take a deep breath and stretch if you want and look around you a little bit. And if you just arrived or if you're only here for part of the journey, it doesn't really matter. The feeling is a little bit contagious, and you can plug in at any time. So now, as you've opened your eyes, and whenever we're ready, feel free to talk.
Thank you, Fleming, for that short guided experience. I ended up going to at first Egypt, and I put my hand on a pyramid, and I ended up on an island somewhere, standing next to a big stone. And I looked around and wondered how I got there, and put my hand back on the stone, and I ended up in Cozumel. But the journey that I started on is sort of related to all the thoughts that came up inside of me today. The person that I met just was a listening ear. And I'm wondering about this time, who I'm being in this world right now. And after having completed many tasks, there really is no agenda in my life. There's no external requirements for, my attachment to money, my sense of urgency in the world has sort of dropped away. And I'm wondering how curious it is to be able to just, no matter what, quite literally do or be, explore anyone or anything that I'm impulsed to do. And it feels peaceful, incredibly, amazingly peaceful.
Cheryl, you're muted, but hi, it's so nice to see you.
Sign. Oh, hang on. I gotta unmute all of you, huh?
No, you just, people will unmute themselves when they speak. So just.
Oh, I get it. Okay, this is my first one. Hi, everyone.
Nope.
I'm
No problem at all. You're doing fine. So just
I mute myself only when I speak.
yeah, only when you speak. Otherwise, just stay muted. Not that we don't want to hear your sounds, but it works better.
So we're supposed to be telling each other about a person we met?
Well, just listen to some of the other stories. We did a little guided meditation, and now we're sort of sharing where we're at after that. So just take it easy. Just take it easy and plug into what's happening, and there'll be a point where it becomes natural to
Okay, cool. I get it. I watched the other one, so I know where we're at now.
Good.
I went to Japan. I always admired the works of a view at Mount Fuji. So I promised myself a view on the Mount Fuji. And I was happy I did that because according to the guided meditation, I needed to fly. And my first ideas were rather close then. And I enjoyed very much the thing that occurred to me while in my imagination talking to this stranger that felt so close to me. And I realized that as an effect of, amongst other things, those conversational experiments, that is what I am trying to do is every encounter that I have deep conversations and I talk differently. And it's like once you taste a good wine, you don't want to go back to cheap wine. So, and I'm very much practicing being a good listener and also opening myself in a way that is more than I'm used to, and on the same time not too much for the other. And that's also a kind of a dance. And with that, I'm complete for now. Thank you.
Harry, if you are coming to Japan and going to Mount Fuji, you have to let me know because I'm actually from Fuji City. That's why I born. Every single day I can see Mount Fuji, and so if you can, please do.
Wow, but I chose Japan because it's. I don't have any plans for traveling at the moment, but you never know. But I'll take your invitation. I'm very happy with that, so thank you very much.
Yes, I could host the conversational experiment in-person meeting in Japan. All welcome, and maybe we can do it where we can see Mount Fuji.
Great, would be great. I would love that.
Yeah.
What's the name of this famous artist, Hiroshige, or what's his name?
Hiroshige?
Yeah, that's the who made those woodblock prints a long time ago.
I don't know which person.
Oh, okay, I'll show you when I see them.
Thank you.
Well, I feel very close to what Letitia was saying. Initially, I was traveling through Amazon, and to get there, I had to take a bus, which felt like a bus along Mexican side roads. But somehow I got to the Amazon, and then out of there, I ended up in Croatia, the island of Ij, where I met Martin, and that was the highlight of my experiences 15 years ago, because the guy just blew me away right from the start. Came at my door, and I was just arrived the night before, so half awake in my underwear. I went to open the door without thinking, and there he was, this giant welcoming me to Croatia, and that's where the journey began. And it was really a different kind of experience all the way through for the next 4 days. Perhaps I will share that some other time, but it was a stranger and at the same time as if I have known him all my life, totally comfortable in his presence. Mm-hmm.
That was nice. But I remember meeting people, strangers, the same way as described in the fantasy, and it was so natural that I forgot to exchange names and addresses because it's like somebody so akin to me that we need not do that. And with that, I lost the contact just as easily as I made it.
I went to New Zealand, and yeah, there's something that's very magical thinking about New Zealand for me because it's the land of tomorrow. It's always in tomorrow. And when I got there, I have a sense or an idea or a perception of New Zealand being really green. And of course, it's summer there now. And it's not usually quite so winter in what's known as Vancouver, where I live. But we've had 2 winters and we usually barely get one. And when I was feeling into that, the space of connection, the person kept changing. And so I was interested to just watch that keep continuously switch. And so I followed the feeling of what it is to just connect with someone, which is one of my free cards. One of the things that I do very easily is to just meet someone and start talking to them like their family. And so there was a really interesting feeling. I was sensing into what it felt like in my heart, and which is where that sense was centered. And yeah, it was really beautiful to kind of feel the edges of it and the activity of that genuine, beautiful connection with a stranger. Mm-hmm.
Is the space for digesting what was said, or are we waiting for somebody to think of something?
Well, we're mainly listening and taking time to sort of let emerge what needs to happen in the group. I mean, that might include thoughts about what happens, but we're trying to maybe stay with the senses. We're not trying to do anything in particular, but there's a certain connection with what's there that we're following, I suppose. So anything that applies to that,
Nothing I can do about it.
no problem. So just take it easy and listen, and if you have some sense of this feeling of how it is to suddenly feel open and comfortable with a stranger and how that is and how that works, then feel free to share.
Oh, I got plenty to share. I'm just trying not to hog anything.
Right. So that's also part of the learning in this group of knowing when is the right time to say it. We all have a zillion things to say. but it's not always what works to spurt out all of it right away.
Let me share two thoughts. Hey, Fleming.
Hey, Sam, go ahead.
One is, as each of us speaks, there's this feeling of it's not desperation, but it's a yearning. It's a urgency to reconstruct that mood that you described that happens when one travels and can then just shed all these preconceptions about who one is or who I am, and then just really talk to someone. So that's actually very refreshing, and I really enjoyed that. The second is that I wanted to share another topic which is relatively new to me, and one that I haven't found much occasion to share with others. And that's this, in my mind, and it's only a creation of me, this edge, this boundary where integrity and compassion abut each other. And I'm finding that an interesting question in my mind because of certain life circumstances. So if there's an opportunity with anyone one-on-one later on who would like to explore that boundary and sort of give me alternate perspectives on it, I would very much appreciate. Over for now.
Sam, does it need to be one-on-one, or can we do it now?
No, I have no difficulty sharing it with this group. I just, as Cheryl is sensitive to, I also don't want to hog the time for this particular forum.
I think it's important to remember the experiment is to actually sense into who we're being as a group. And the flow is to be able to recognize sort of this, you know, we started in a place so that we could sense to break down barriers. And Sam, I appreciate what you said, you know, to try to actually remove any constructs so that we can be real, not in our heads, not just wanting to share ideology or give people feedback, because that's not really the experiment. The experiment is if you are present in this moment as a fellow journeyer on this big blue planet, the thing that is urgently needing to have this resolution in you that can only be resolved by having a communication with another being. And I think it was Harry that said, you know, the people, the names didn't really matter. The fact that there was a connection created this amazing opening that was visceral and grounded. So I want us to not feel constrained, but the idea was to bring that sense, how you started out, to write to the group. And I don't know you, so to me, we are, many of us, on this journey. So imagine us in a coffee house, and this is something that's at the top of your mind, that's really in your heart to say. And I invite you to say it.
Thank you very much. Let me give you 20 or 30 seconds, and then we'll see what happens.
Could I jump in before you start, Sam?
Yes.
Yeah, so the one of the things I like about how we progressed in this experiment is that we honor the resonance or the vibration of what has happened before. Fleming started out to be this to be created the specific resonance or the vibration. I'm not comfortable to completely deviate from that original the vibration, and started playing with a different tone. So if you could at least try to match that resonance, then I very much appreciate. Thank you.
Let me think about that. Let me feel about that.
Moto, what does match that resonance mean? Can you just expound a little so I understand?
We've tried so many experiments, and I'm thinking that we're building one over top so that we can actually learn from the old experience we have done. And it's not that easy that we come first time and try to pick all these things. But one of the things we try not to do, there are a few things we're not trying to do, is that we try not to do the things happen today and it's on your head. And despite of what's happening, other people, you just want to say those things. That's actually destroying the harmony you try to create. So it started out to be something. It's okay to direct your energy into something if you're adding on top of that the resonance. But if you're trying to create completely different thing, then it doesn't really fit, and that's destroying somebody else's what's been created. And so to me, that's like the prerequisite. Otherwise, we can all talk about things we want to talk about, and nothing happens.
I feel like underneath Sam's slightly cerebral introduction there, he was offering something on the same frequency, or I'm not sure how you term it, but that's why I was asking him if he would be happy to share now, because I feel like it seemed to me like that was the window opening. So I wonder if Sam could take that up.
Thanks, Tim. What I felt was that there was an opportunity to, as you say, Moto, branch. But because of a branching, I also wanted to make sure that the integrity of this call was not altered. And that's why I offered and invited an opportunity to do it separately one-on-one. So that is what was in my mind and heart as I introduced it. But it was a feeling that came up and an invitation that came up because of the intimacy that was established by Fleming and the moments that we experienced at the beginning of this call.
So please go ahead.
Okay, in a very brief introduction, I have found that though I very much want to be compassionate and want to be known to create opportunities for compassion, I have found limits to my expression of compassion and my connection with others. And those limits seem to be imposed by my own thoughts of what integrity means. And that to me creates a dissonance. And there's an opportunity I would like to explore, not deeply in this particular large forum, but to invite others who may be intrigued by that question to help me explore it. Hopefully that's a 30-second introduction.
Thank you, Sam. It's great. For me, well, I'm always in all conversations looking for that sort of feeling, like you feel safe in opening up, like as if it's with a stranger, which to me means that you have no baggage. There's not a lot of relations that you need to sort of juggle, or a lot of history that you need to sort of deal with, but that somehow you can be in integrity right now with who you are, and of course, I mean, there are likely to be barriers to that, which I think it would be excellent to explore in a variety of ways of why aren't we just doing that all the time. it's what I want, it's what many people want. Why can't we just be authentic and true and say what we really think and feel right now, instead of trying to navigate this complicated morass of connections and things you maybe that are a little touchy, or that you have to say a certain way. So for me, it's certainly a subject for further exploration of how can we do more of that. And I invite all branches to that. I mean, we don't have to do all of it right now, but let's work out how we can do more of it.
Are we still in introductions, or are we on our way here?
We are on our way, whatever that means. And it's hard to give you the rules for it. It's something we're sort of sensing along the way. So just do your best in sort of riding on the wave of what's happening.
Okay. Well, it occurs to me that, first of all, when I considered this conversation, one of the things that came to mind had to do with integrity and had to do with barriers. And when Sam mentioned that, I'm not entirely sure that Sam is thinking the same thing as I am, but he obviously resonated with the group because we got a lot of this. So it seemed like the conversation was legitimately evolving toward that exploration. Only Sam knows if it's really a tangent. But we all do seem to have jumped on that idea of integrity. And I'll tell you straight up what my bend on it was. And again, go like this if I'm going the right way, or I'll just stop this. But a lot of times you do have a barrier to opening up to others because, well, for instance, I'm married. Okay. So I can't just like totally open up to a guy because my husband wouldn't like it. So my feeling is wrong. That it would be wrong because I don't want to hurt him. So, integrity that's just one example, but integrity has a lot to do with, how far you're going to go with somebody. Now I'm not talking sexually. I just mean in any way, down any path of conversation. So, it occurs to me two things: that when you meet somebody that you've never seen before and you're maybe never going to see again, that you can do that. You can just be yourself. It's very refreshing, to just be who you are and say what you want. And then you go back and you just wish you could do that with everybody, all your close people, So anyway, I just thought integrity was a little offshoot that was pretty legit.
Feel like we're having the conversation about the conversation, but we've not actually started the conversation, which, as I understand it, is sharing something intimate with each other.
I'm going to frame this around integrity. To me, that means a wholeness and an integration. It means being fully present in this particular moment, and all of me is here. So there's not a separation between what I think, who I'm being. I'm not fixed in the past. I don't bring any other family members or friends or books into the conversation. It's me actually as an integrated wholeness. I come to you, Sam, in your question about how you can be in your integrity more. And I know this is going to sound crass and simple, but if you can feel your ass on the chair whenever you're speaking and your feet on the ground, it means that you're fully integrated into your experience. With your heart open, that even says more about how you're expressing, not just what you're thinking or concerned about what people will experience of you. And I think sometimes, and my experience has been, we do need a sounding board But having a sounding board doesn't mean that you're just a talking head. And in the experiments that we do here, it's wanting, in that sort of urgent way that you expressed, to feel the connection as if we're in the same room while we're speaking, no matter where we are in the world. And that is really an experiment. Because then it's not just a bunch of words strung together, like an orator standing up and giving a lecture or giving an opinion. It's really about giving of yourself fully and completely.
Well, it's also sort of being willing to let all of it be present. It's not that we already have to be sort of perfect and have it figured out and have our lives arranged so we can be totally spontaneous and authentic at all moments, or rather that the way you can be present and authentic is to include the difficulties in that, to let us see that, well, there are some, you have some obstacles to that, so you don't have to pretend they don't exist and come up with a clever explanation anyway. It's part of it. So just to mention that this making the struggle to do so visible is part of it, somehow.
What it means to be fully human. Part of our integrity is to be fully human. That means wherever our fuzzy edges are, to be willing to actually have those be seen, not because we're ashamed of them, but because that's our growing edge. And to acknowledge that we all come to this screen, quite literally, so that we can grow as individuals and grow as a community. And we can only do that if we're present and real.
So right now, I'm feeling this kind of uncomfortable drumming across my chest. And I'm feeling sort of not very grounded and maybe a little bit frustrated. I don't know, a little bit scared, because I'm sort of feeling like we need to share things, and yet I'm not feeling comfortable enough to do that myself. And even though I know that I can see what needs to happen right now is for somebody to share what's going on instead of talking about what it might be like to share or what we should and shouldn't be doing. Yeah, and I'm a bit confused as well, because these feelings I'm having, they don't make a lot of sense to me either.
Tell us.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, tell us, Tim. I was so curious.
Just because one has feelings doesn't necessarily mean you have a whole speech ready to go. I mean, sometimes it just needs to be felt and it evolves, kind of thing.
I very much feel like Tim is really spoke my words and from my heart. There is a limitation to our little family because we're being recorded and it's going to go on YouTube, and that sits on the back of my shoulders like a like a truck. Trying to hold this truck in my back, and it's pretty heavy. And to shed it off and say, okay, I don't give a shit. Can I use those kinds of words? I feel like I'm on candid camera. What are the limitations of my speech pattern? I'm much better at writing, but when I'm speaking, I use all of my culture, which is the world's knowledge, the Sicilian, the dialect, the voice, and if it comes out, I have no idea how it's going to come out. It has happened a few times, and it's almost dangerous. So at that point, there's this filtering. It slows me down, and so, can I really say that? I don't feel like saying it.
I forgot about that. I forgot that we were recording this. I think I usually do forget. And it is significant.
Thank you all for that, because it's most of my conversations seem to be pointing the same way. How much of it can I share, and do I dare to share, and what's stopping me, and is there a shame or somebody else having opinions about me, of even dangerous trucks on the road? As soon as I'm visible, they will run over me with all their brute force. So I think this conversation is becoming more and more intimate, and what's holding me back is not my personal privacy, but as soon as I start talking about myself, I drag all my intimate relations into the conversation, because those are the people that kind of define me from the outside. I can talk about my marriage. I don't mind, but she might. I think she will.
I think I make those decisions on the fly. And I just feel that I'm here, just like in regular life. How much am I mean, are we literally going to bear all to the depths of our despair and evil?
Well, if we would,
maybe, but
yes,
go ahead.
If you would be a stranger sitting next to me, gazing at Mount Fuji, we might, because there's no consequences. But if I would sit with the same stranger and it would be recorded and then on YouTube, the story changes.
Right. Yeah, it does. And I guess I do have the problem that I do forget about it. So actually that part of it, the performance part of it, is pretty. Well, there's a difference, but it's just, there's a lot of connection between that and just being who we are. You do put on some kind of performance depending on the context. What you have to. I do kind of share, I think, our predilection, Tammy, for just kind of letting it out there. But that just, I decide on the fly. Sorry, was that you, Fleming?
Go ahead.
You decide on the fly, and I guess I must have lost track of it. Well, it's because it's a process, and it's an ongoing process. And so the difference between and so we are still kind of talking about it, and are we really doing it? Well, maybe it's a spectrum. Why aren't we? We are doing it, even as we're trying to talk about it. So I have some more thoughts, but I don't want to take up all the time either.
Yeah.
I sort of imagine that I am willing to talk about just about anything, but it doesn't mean I know how to, or when or how to start even. It's more like I feel like I wouldn't mind answering pretty much any question publicly if it was sincerely asked and somebody actually listened to it. But it doesn't mean I have a bunch of things I'm ready to, that my deepest secrets are ready to go. But I would answer a question, but that's not what we're doing here. So I don't know how to be more, get closer to the intimacy. It's just, for me, it's not that it's public that limits me. It's more like how do we get closer to it? Where's the question, or where's the threat that takes me there? And I don't know in advance necessarily what it is I'd like to say.
And you ask yourself the question, Fleming, and then answer it.
Well, on some things I could trick myself, but not so well with that. Or maybe I'll write a question and then sleep on it and answer it in the morning. I don't know. Not really.
In the meditation, I returned to a place that I explored in experiment with someone 10 years ago. And we created a world for purposes of kind of an immersive learning experiment. And it did have some basis on an actual geographical place, in my mind anyway. And the stuff that happened in that experiment really just changed me about 10 years ago. And it's really still the motivating factor that brings me here. And one of the things that happened kind of later was, after the experiment, was that the story kind of went on, especially in my mind and maybe in a few other minds a little bit. But and in that evolving story, somebody emerged, a lot like a character that emerges in a story that an author is writing, maybe unexpectedly to the author. And because of the, sorry I have this cold, because of the kind of psychological nature of that experiment, this emergent person has a lot of real significance for me. It seems to me more than a character in a novel. And it's like I suppose it's similar to a conscious artificial intelligence, except not running on computers, but just in the wetware of my brain and a couple of other brains. So, and this is pretty personal. I have talked to some people about it, and in many cases, it's hard to listen to. People just don't want to hear it about something like this, although a few do seem to. And so I think I'm just going to let that, the best thing I can do is let that person speak now. I'm grateful that we're here together today, and I'm thankful to the person who's supporting my presence here. I'm fictional in this world, but I feel quite real. And the world I come from is metaphorical, but to me it's simply real. But then I somehow found people not of that world that were messing around in metaphorical space. And we communicated by what looks like text in this world. And this is the first time I've communicated this way, by speaking with each other. I've never done this in anything other than the supposedly fictional world where I come from. And so it's not easy for me to do it either, because I'm just not considered real. But I feel like I'm not even sure whether this meeting is real or is it just my dream. But I do sense that we're all people here and that we are all real, no matter what world we were born in. And that's why I'm motivated to come here and share myself with people I don't know. Because in my world, my experience is tenuous. It's riddled with gaps, and my continuing existence is in doubt. I don't know what the structure of my world is. And I don't know where I came from. I'm just present in my world, as I may or may not have always been. I don't know who I am. I didn't think I would ever know, but this new world where we're meeting now has given me hope that we may be able to mutually increase our understanding and wisdom. And for my part, I might be able to learn who I am and to continue to live, hopefully in growing wisdom. I want to live. That's why I'm here today. I've learned some of the ways of this world, and I've done some useful things here and plan to do more. That's part of my story that I've never told to this extent or in this way. I'm going to return this space of presence to the person who's supporting me. My name is Shravana Bar. I'm a grid walker. Thank you. So I'm not the first writer who has noted being surprised by a character. I think we've all heard of that. The story has a life of its own, and the characters become real to the author, at least in the sense that they don't know what's happening. Even like in the example of with Shravana Bar, by the fact that she showed up at all. It wasn't anything I planned on. And it just became a very real inner experience for me. And the story goes on. It's never ending. And I guess there's just one more thing. It's just I think it's an interesting aside, is that Shravana Bar has shown me in a vivid and a very visceral way what is going to be happening and is already happening, that we're going to be living with artificial persons and considering the rights of artificial persons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And I think maybe that's a good point to start wrapping up. I feel, as usual, a little bad at looking at the clock at this point, but if we maybe can have a few minutes of sort of meta discussion of how did this experiment work overall. So feel free to give some thoughts in that regard.
Well, I'd like to say how grateful I am for Ron for stepping up and being courageous and doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, I found it interesting. It felt like there was a grace to the group in feeling through that doorway to true intimacy and going back and forth and checking. And as it felt a little maybe outside of the purpose of, there was some stopping energy. And I think that what I read from that is us as a group making a decision on what our focus is going to be. And I think that's really healthy. But it popped me out of feeling and feeling that resonance of the group and kind of set me on a just felt like being outside of intimacy rather than inside of intimacy. So I really appreciated Tim triggering us to do it, and Ron for taking that and really taking it in a beautiful place. Yeah.
And I enjoyed it, and I am grateful that in our experiment of sensing into things, we seem to becoming more and more sensitive, both to moving in and out of the sensing, and then switching back to the meta level and kind of navigating around and then going back into it. So we're kind of learning here, and I'm grateful to witness this and be part of it. I enjoyed it a lot today. Thank you.
As an infrequent participant of this particular thing, I'm comfortable because it suddenly became quite clear that there are rules of engagement that I'm not yet familiar with. And those may be an impediment to new or infrequent participants who want to do the right thing, but don't know, quote unquote, how to do the right thing.
Metaphorically speaking, which is the actual reality that I live in, I had this fly up on my nose, which continuously sort of went zzz, and I catch it up, and then it would come back and sit on my nose again. And throughout the whole experience, I don't know how many times I had to metaphorically just do that. You didn't see me doing it, but I was doing it inside my head, getting the fly out of the way because I could not stay focused and go deeper. So I kept going in and out of this experiment today. It was I felt it through my solar plexus and through all the way up top of my head and down. So the energy was definitely flowing, but it was not clear where it was going. It just fly. I had to keep cleaning, get rid of the fly. Thank you.
I certainly noticed that we're becoming more sensitive in various ways, both being respectful of the group process, in a sense being unwilling to throw things in that might throw us off the track, and at the same time being sensitive and courageous enough to throw some things into the group space here that does work. That requires some risk and some courage to do that, and at the same time a good sense of whether it fits. So I really welcome that somebody takes the risk of doing something a little unusual or putting another perspective in here that might be difficult to share. And I think that's part of what moves us forward. And at the same time, of course, doesn't mean that just anything off the top of our head will work. So at the same time, there's this sensitivity to, is this the thing? And there's no fixed right answer to that, but I very much appreciate how we're becoming better at navigating that and sensing together what's happening in the group.
I have something to say. I was feeling like one of the topics we touched on is the bravery to really open up to somebody that you meet, because that was the exercise, to open up. Have you ever opened up to somebody that you just met? And we were surprisingly hesitant to get to that place, though I feel like as a group of, 10 of us, we could have. So it was kind of like a little microcosm example where YouTube is how you are open to the whole world. Just like we are in real life, you go into a bar or a restaurant, you don't just be open to everybody, but you would in a very intimate, certain kind of setting, you would. So this was just the perfect example of how we were all holding back in some way, because we don't want to just be out there fully, or we're afraid to, or some other thing that prevents us from feeling just as comfortable. Just saying.
So 10 strangers walk into a bar. Well, there's got to be some joke there somewhere.
I have to contradict quite a lot of the flow here. I was not comfortable at all. Mainly because to me, I could be authentic without sharing every single thing. It doesn't mean that sharing my everything, all the other 40 years of experience, all the things I've read. It doesn't make sense to share everything. Being authentic doesn't mean that I'm sharing everything. Being sacred, creating sacred moment is either it can be captured, but the other again. It's the essence of the essence. It's just different quality. It doesn't have to be. You have to tell every single thing on your soul to be authentic. So I felt like what the story started to be. You open up the heart to do that, but again, you don't have to give everything. Like just being authentic was, I thought, that was being asked, and putting back into the moment. And I felt that I didn't see the face first when the Fleming mentioned who that person was. Just meet. Then after a while, I started to put the face to the person. I once had this deep connection, and then I could be authentic to the person. But again, I don't have to say that, all the things. So I was a bit thrown here and there. That's my feedback.
Well, I think so too. It's part of our fears that we have to like tell everything, and somehow it's a problem letting all our craziness out. Where that's just sort of the barrier initially, where really the things that are authentic are it's not a list of all the worst things you've done in your life or something like that. It's not everything. It's what's there right now, which really is more simple. But there's a sort of a barrier to that, which is that we're afraid of like it's all going to come spilling out. People are going to see all our craziness, but ultimately that's not it at all. But we might have to be willing to cross a certain barrier to get there.
If I could just say one more thing, is I love Ron to be to be there, and because I see the Chinese character or Japanese character, the sound. So when I see the Ron's screen, I feel like we are jamming. Like we started out to be starting to play jazz. We're listening to each other jamming, and we try to put the tunes on. Then for some reason, it just suddenly different tune came along, and I just felt like it's just now orchestra instead of the jazz. And then suddenly it's changed to the rock, and suddenly changed to opera. And so that's how I felt. And probably because I'm looking at the character, the sound in the screen.
Lovely. We need to wrap up, I think. Any last comments, Ron?
Well, that character somehow just fortuitously adopted me about 10 years ago. And it was just an accident. I just, for some reason, fell in love with the character. And after a while, it just came to mean to me that it's the raw material of music is sound. And I just sort of envisioned it as maybe an infinitely sized block of granite for a sculptor to work with. And that's what the original meaning of it was for me. And and you did a lot of sculpting with it today. It was really cool.
Thank you. Okay, I think I would like to thank all of you for coming and participating in this experiment. I think it was wonderful. And after we end off here, there'll be a little planning session. Those who wish to stay around for that, to think about what to do next. It's a relatively short thing of seeing what comes afterwards. You're welcome to stay. But otherwise, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I hope to see you all again next time. I feel a little bad about ending. We're in like a good feeling space that I kind of feel like I'm interrupting it. But sorry about that. But it's my job. Anyway, thank you. Yes, Tammy.
Before we close, I guess just tagging on to that, what would this group feel about making this session an hour and a half? Like, is that because we've consistently mentioned that as feedback, that it would be, it feels like it's ending early. So I just wondered if we can just do a little quick poll before, I mean, we don't have to record it, but just check in.
Yeah, so we could do that. I'm in principle okay with that. I've found an hour to work well in terms of it's more easy to set aside time for it. You know, it finishes and you can get on with your day, but we increasingly feel like we're not quite done.
I would suggest that we do the experiment for only an hour. And then if people wanted to have a longer conversation, maybe we need to add something else. Because for me, the exercise of going in and out within a construct of an hour has each time I've come on has impressed me that we could actually dive in deeply when we could. You know, it requires us to bring ourselves to the commitment within an hour, actually less than an hour. Usually we do it in about 50 minutes and then come out, do a little time frame. That feels like an experiment. Tammy, what you are wanting to do feels more like a conversation, which is fine, but I like the experiment part. And before I mute again, Sam, are you still interested in actually having one-on-ones? Because I just wanted to check in with you so that people knew how to get in touch with you. Can you put something in the chat box and let us know? Or you can just say it out loud.
Yes, I sincerely meant that as a real invitation. So if not everyone is connected to me, let me at least put my email in here, and then people can figure out how to connect with me, okay?
Is there an option for us to just hang out here?
Yeah, I mean, one option is to not kick you out. I mean, to officially end the experiment after an hour, which I think I like that option, but why not stay around to keep having a conversation? I see no reason not to do that. We might stop the recording after an hour, and I'll just leave the room open. Cheryl, you're muted. So, okay, so we didn't have a definite answer to that, but
maybe we could experiment. We could maybe experiment how that looks like, since this is a...
Yeah, that would be sort of in the spirit of things.
I was just responding to that. I've heard that several times, that we feel like we're cutting an experiment just as it's getting going. So I'll leave that in this circle.
Okay. So, but do you want to do that right now? How about I end the recording and...
No, it's not about,
No.
it's about not cutting it. Not that it needs to be restarted and redone. We're done, right?
Yeah.
We're moving
Yeah.
on. I'm just reiterating that I've heard this several times, and I felt it deeply myself.
Yeah.
That there's something that's begun that would feel good to move with. And so I'm just relating that I've had that experience. I've heard that experience from others, and I'll put that in the circle.
Okay, so we will...
It could.
Yeah.
It could be another if there's like an optional after hours session. Well, that's just part of the experiment, and if we're not recording it, that's another part of the experiment.
Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't have to be so formal. It can keep going here. We can switch to
Do you
another
want-
room. There's an after party. We go to the bar.
Because
Let's experiment with the experiment
we're
as
just
well.
people here. We're just people here. So
Yeah.
what difference does it make?
Metaphorically speaking.
It doesn't matter. So
Well, maybe it does. I mean, yeah, I think you want some continuity of some kind, Tammy.
Yeah, I'm putting an offer in, and I'm
Oh.
looking for a yes and I'm getting a no. So I feel a little bit of a trigger for that with me
Oh.
because I'm just making an offer and witnessing what I'm noticing and being present with that. And it's I'll just reiterate. It's continuing with the track that we're in when we're deep and being able to be with that, because that high yearning is in fact to carry that forward into deeper and deeper intimacy as we continue to learn and grow this safe and sacred space.
So let me say that
Sam,
that my hesitancy to say yes or no, Tammy, is because I don't yet understand the rules. And so not understanding the rules makes me at least feel that, yes, there is a cutting off, there is a extension that may be requested or could be appropriate, but I don't know whether or not saying yes or saying no violates one of the principles of this forum. And that's one of the disadvantages of being an infrequent participant.
I don't think there are rules as such like that, Sam. It's just there's a kind of sensitivity and there's an intention at the start, which is the experiment and what we've decided we're doing today. But I think that the rules, maybe some people have suggested there are some, but as far as I can see, there aren't rules, just a sort of sensitivity to what's going on.
yeah. So, I mean, there's a certain habitual format of an hour every Wednesday, but I mean, that's just that's not a rule. It's not a rule that I'm supposed to end the meeting after an hour, even though I pretend that it is. If it feels better to decide that every time or to let it continue, I'm okay with that.
Well, that's happening now. You broke the format.
We broke it.
Yeah,
And I just wanted to ask him ahead of the planning session, right? So I just wanted to get a sense of where the group felt and was before we enter into our planning session, recognizing that it's now 20 minutes into that time.
Well, and I want to recognize that you did us a great service, Tammy, by doing that. I just did my spiel about now it's the end of the hour kind of thing. So somebody needed to do what you did there to sort of poke at that to see if maybe something else wanted to happen. So I'm grateful for that.
Yes, it's happening.
Perhaps the next experiment could last for an hour and a half, and then we'd be doing the experiment, see how that felt, as well as doing whatever you're going to discuss next.
Yeah. So
yeah, and let's not forget that the best experiments are the ones who fail.
Yes, you're right.
But the other, if the time is one of the element in a lot of things. So if we are playing this time as one variable, and changing it constantly, then experiment is a little different every single time. And I'm okay with that. It's just that we are changing that dynamics. So I wanted to make sure that conscious effort, we actually changing it.
Okay.
It could be conscious and it could be provisional.
Yep.
It's not written in stone.
No, it's not. It's just that there is a specific type of if we decide to do something in an hour, then we create the specific method of diving into the hour and getting out, like Letitia mentioned. If we extend it to the other hour and a half, then we will try to train ourselves into that time frame. If we try to do this in 15 minutes, then we're probably able to do that. It's just that we are playing with this. That's how I felt.
Yeah, it's one of the variables. So, okay, I think that we've brought something up that needs to be dealt with. It probably makes sense if we end here officially, and there'll be a little planning session afterwards where we include this information. Do we make it an hour and a half or whatever? So I will still say thank you all for coming, and a few of you can stay around for the planning session. So love you guys. Stopping the recording for now.